America, my name is Osei-Frimpong. Now, I have a video on this channel about how if you're not willing to be called anti-Semitic, you can't really talk about the Israel-Palestine situation and the current genocide that's going on when the Israelis want to wipe out the Palestinians. And you're just going to be called anti-Semitic, so just own it and just keep plowing forward. That was my video before. And I'm thinking the same thing about transphobia. Now, I don't have a problem with kids dressing any sort of way, or people in general dressing any sort of way. And I don't think the bathroom bit is that big of a deal. I thought we solved that back in the 90s with Ally McBeal and the unisex. I'm not worried about any of that. What I don't like is the fact that we're giving pills to kids. This gender affirming care is, I think, a reflection of our kind of ignorance of ourselves and like oppressive gender norms to begin with. Because if your 6-year-old is screaming they want to be a boy or they want to be a girl, or your 10-year-old even, that just means that you've imposed too rigid of a gender structure in their life already. And that's a you problem. That's a you problem. Because what are they escaping, or what are they running to when they pronounce to you that they want to be a girl or they want to be a boy? So I would rather fix the problem that way, as creating like more flexible and appropriate ways to be girls and boys, rather than just give kids pills so that they can become an other whose content might be equally problematic and laced with all sorts of class and race biases that we haven't investigated. Now, another thing I want to talk about is our history with pharmaceuticals and liberalism, right? I have a friend, her video is on this channel, Susan Matter, and she wrote a book on how a lot of the symptoms of menopause might actually be a product of our cultural imagination. That doesn't mean that they're all in our head. That just means that a lot of them are in our head, right? And a lot of the things we think of as symptoms of menopause have more to do with our culture and anxieties around aging and all these other issues than the biological truth of menopause. And so she wrote a whole book on that called The Slow Moon Climbs. I did an interview with her. It's on the site. Now, she gets a lot of hate mail from, honestly, white women who are very addicted to their sensibilities about menopause. And her argument is that once Big Pharma gets in and starts pumping hormones as the answer, then there becomes all of these incentives to medicalize something that's not really strictly a medical problem. We just need to talk better about aging and what that means. And that's her thesis. That's the book, The Slow Moon Climbs. So our history with menopause, and I'm of the generation that once saw a spike in C-sections once we medicalized birth. I'm of the generation that saw a spike in ADHD. Now you can't go to a college campus and you'll just be tripping on Adderall. Like it'll just be like, it's easier to find Adderall than it is to find, I don't know, probably Tylenol. I bet you it's easier to find Adderall than it is to find aspirin in a college dorm. And that has a lot to do with the way we've medicalized attention deficit disorder, or have just made school so boring that people want to check out, and we're so bad at teaching that people want to check out in so many different ways. And same with anti-anxiety medicine. I'm in the generation where like it was just like a few girls in high school who took lithium. Now we're talking about 9 and 10-year-olds who are on girls on anti-anxiety medicines, boys on Adderall, and we're just medicalizing the problem. And pharma gets paid, and the doctors are hacks, so it all just kind of works out. And then the parents don't have to get absolved of responsibility of actually ethically educating their kids in order to handle like anxiety or focus, and everyone seems to win except the kids on these pills in a way that they think that their biology is defective. And that's not particularly good. And I'm of that generation where like it was a few percent, it was a small percentage, but now those people are parents, and all of those kids are all of their kids are medicalized because the kids never got off. The kids who are now in their 40s who are parents, they never got off that medication that they got at 16, so now they're medicating their 9-year-old. And it's a part of a culture, and it might be part of a cultural syndrome. And that is when the symptoms are real insofar as they're not just something you could just wish away, but they're not founded in any sort of organic reasoning. It's a matter of kind of the culture. The stories we tell ourselves about ourselves are really powerful, and also so are placebos, right? So we need to think about what it means to be so susceptible. So ADHD, Adderall, C-sections gone up, and we just have a horrendous track record with respect to what happens when the pharmaceutical companies get together with a bunch of liberals and decide to work in cahoots to medicalize the care for children. So that's what I wanted to say, and that's kind of my transphobia. And what I'm scared of, honestly, is that this will lead to, one, a permanent GOP takeover, because they might be right in saying that we should be militating against this casual and culturally marketed transitioning process, because, a lot of kids are confused, they're anxious, they have FOMO, or they think the grass is greener on the other side, so they think they'll solve their problems by becoming the other gender. And parents don't want to fight with their kids on everything, so they might give in. And a lot of parents don't want to fight with their kids at all, so they'll just take their kids to a different culture. Well, all right, we're going to Catholic school. Well, this will never just be an issue or an option, because you won't find 10 of your friends being trans and talking about it. So it just won't be the same kind of issue. And so you'll find a lot of kids a lot of families just evacuating public institutions, because public institutions will be, full of liberals who are bad parents. Right? And so the kids who don't want to have to go 9 rounds, the parents who don't want to have to go 9 rounds with their kids about these kinds of issues, will just take their kids out of public institutions. And then public institutions will just be filled with liberal whites and people who often black people who can't afford their way to get out from under the thumb or the presence of liberal whites. And that's not a place where you want public institutions. That's just not where we want public institutions to go. All because we don't want to say that it's probably bad to allow marketing and a casual culture around kids transitioning, because we have a hard time reining in both the medical establishment and youth culture. And so you put those together, and we assume that in 10 years, the population of trans kids who are on pills won't explode. But I think it will explode. I think it will explode. And I think it's just something you should just let them deal with when they're older. If they want to transition when they're adults, that's fine. But that's when they're adults. That's not when they're kids. And that's not when they're going to foment an ethic among your kid. Right? And so that is the color of my transphobia. It goes right down to how we are just bad. We are just bad. We are just bad at anticipating our cultural syndromes. We are just bad at it. And I don't want us to find out too late that this turns out like ADHD and antidepressant use, where as soon as we open the door, it just goes it's out of control. And now you have a lot of well-meaning parents having to play defense against their kid transitioning. And they're getting harassed by their kid transitioning. And then the kid will get the pills on the black market, because there'll be pills everywhere. And I just think that this is something that the conservatives might be right about enough that we should not be allowing children to transition. Right? Dress any way you want to. We can figure out the bathroom issue later. But the pills come later. The pills come later. And I think that's a responsible, given our history around both marketing, medicalization, and pharmaceutical medicalization. Because what happens when, instead of commercials, pharmaceutical companies just start hiring script writers in Hollywood to get this to get this normalized in all of your kids' favorite television shows, or with all of their favorite influencers on YouTube. What happens then on TikTok? Like, do you really want to be playing defense against that? Like, we assume that pharmaceutical companies aren't going to be able to figure out a way to market. It's not just like 1,000 kids. And the kids it does work on, like, it's kids other kids listen to. So like I said, I'm worried that it's going to become like C-sections, ADHD, and antidepressant medication, where it just started out just a small population and then exploded to now we just can't say no to kids on puberty blockers. And we put other families in an unfortunate position. And then like the right families will just pull themselves out of those institutions, where other kids will push their kids into thinking that like the grass is greener on the other side and that they should block their puberty. So someone says, I've listened to the children. That's the most important thing you can do. No, children don't know what they're doing. Like children should listen to their parents. You should listen to me or someone smarter than I am or wiser than I am and do your homework. Like, children don't know. They're looking to you for guidance. And your guidance should be keep them so busy doing other things that they don't think that life is going to be better if they switch their gender, and they can figure that stuff out when they get older. That's my PSA for you right now on the issue. You know, I think I'm right. I think we have a bad history of when liberal parenting gets in cahoots with the medical industry, and a bunch of like social scientists and psychologists get involved, and it just ends up with kids being medicated and pharmaceutical companies making a lot of money without any liability, right? And I just want to avoid that by saying no. We screwed up with ADHD. We screwed up with antidepressant use among kids, and now I don't want to screw up with the trans things. It might be a cultural syndrome, and I don't want to see the numbers explode. Numbers of kids on pills exploding. The medical industry is not your friend. The pharmaceutical industry is not your friend. So, thank you for your time. I appreciate what you're doing. You're not going to hear this other places. Trust me. We have a horrendous history. We're not going to hear this other places. So go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 if you want to save the Democratic Party, because make no mistake, this will make a permanent GOP majority. This isn't like gay marriage where you're on the right side, the liberals are on the right side of the argument. This is not that. This is something that will lead to an evacuation of public institutions, and as like parents just pull their kids out of a community where this will be marketed to their kids. And it'll lead to permanent GOP majorities if this goes to the states. So you just want this to not be a thing. You just want this to not be a thing if you care about democratic politics and you want to be on the right side of the issue. All right. Thank you for your time. Go to www.funkyacademic.com, kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month, and don't fall for the hype. We've already fumbled. We fumbled with ADHD. We fumbled with anti-anxiety. Like, there are stakes to this. Let's get this right now. Peace.